So if there's a chance to interact and you choose to want to, take yours on and off of mute accordingly. We will have two presenters today. Stephen Thrain will be first from QCM Technologies, over some tips and techniques. And in general, he will chat with you and you'll be able to interact accordingly. Then he will turn it over to Dave Four, and Dave Four will talk about managed detection response and MDR around the Sophos solution that is just growing like leaps and bounds across the industry. So a very hot and important topic for everybody is security. So we're excited. Don't worry about taking copious notes. As we mentioned, if you would like a copy, you can reach out to Zona and get the recorded copy of this. Again, thank you all for attending. Without further ado, I'll turn it over to Stephen Thrain, your first presenter.
All right, thank you very much, Tim. Can everybody hear me okay?
Yep.
Yep,
Okay.
can hear you great.
You're good,
Okay,
Steve.
awesome. Thank you very much for at least giving me that little bit of feedback. Today, QCM and Sophos are going to talk to you or present to you some information around how to provide a better security posture for your environment. And we're going to kind of take it in two steps, if you will. I'm going to take the first part, as Tim had pointed out, and I'm going to talk about endpoint protection, some of the things around Sophos Central, and some of the things that are that you should be paying attention to for cybersecurity, like cyber insurance, phishing. If you already are a Sophos customer and you actually utilize Sophos endpoint, I'm going to talk about some things there that you might not be aware of, and kind of show you a couple of items that might be new to you that you might want to pay attention to. So with that being said, I know a number of you that are on the call today are or have been Sophos customers. I'm going to ask a question, and I'm not doing it as a poll. I'm just asking the question. Do you guys have access to your Sophos Central console? Is there folks out there that do have access, and do you know what I'm talking about? It's okay if the answer is no, I don't have access to it. I'm going to show it to you, and we'll talk about that. So,
My team has access, Stephen.
okay, very good. Thanks, Wayne, for pointing that out. If you don't have access and you are a Sophos customer already, you should definitely do that, because there's a number of things there that can help your organization or help you in your organization provide a better security posture for yourselves and also see what's going on in that space. So I am going to kind of hop over to a Sophos Central dashboard, and it is actually our QCM one. So this is not, this is real. I haven't cleaned up some number of things because I like to not make everything all green. If we make things all green, everybody thinks that there's never any work to be done or things to be looked at. So in this case, this is just the portal. You get logged into it at cloud.sophos.com through the credentials that would get set up for you. If you're a QCM customer already and you want access to this and you don't have it, you can contact us and we'll help you get that going so that you can have access to it if you do desire to have it. Okay. On the left-hand side, navigation bar, just like we would expect on almost any normal modern web-based product. And then there's a dashboard that's in the center, and that's where I'm starting today. So I'm going to not go all over all of the items here. I'm going to cover a couple of items that are things that you should be paying attention to more often than not for some reasons that I'll also talk through. Okay. So on the main dashboard here, things that I kind of care about up front are these high alerts that are up here. These high alerts that are here may be things that we want to deal with. I can actually click into this and it will take me over into this alerts section. And on this alert section, it will show me all those specific high alerts that my team should be looking at to try to get those items resolved. Any alerts that are recent are going to show up here in the dashboard as well. And I can click on the hyperlinks that will take me right to that specific alert. Some alerts are just informational, the little I, so that's going to be low. Some are in that medium level, so that's a little triangle warning sign, so that's the yellow here. And then high alerts are the red ones, or things that you probably want to take it, take a good peek at right away. If I scroll down a little bit, it's going to give me another piece of the dashboard that has a few items out there. This left side here has what we'll call the devices and user summary. And there's a couple of icons that are in here. So if you have never clicked on these icons before, the first one's the endpoint. So those are workstations. The second one are people. Third one is unified. And then you got mobile. And then you've got server. So you can click on each of these and it'll kind of give you a little bit more of an infographic, if you will, about where you are. You can also click on the See Report. We'll jump into a report section as well. If I scroll down a little farther and you're doing Sophos Central email, which is spam, phishing, virtual VIP impersonation, all of the types of things that you should be doing, click to URL, et cetera, and I'll talk about some of these things more often. It gives us a kind of a high picture summary of inbound activity and outbound activity. One of the things I like to be able to do sometimes with management is provide them this information, and I'll show it to you a different way as well, because it lets other folks see the value that this Sophos Central email component provides for your organization. So, how many real messages you have, how many are blocked, how many actually had viruses in them, those kind of things, right? How many malicious URLs that, your folks are being faced with all the time, how much around the impersonation, hey, go get me a Walmart gift card and scratch off the numbers and send me the numbers kind of stuff, all that kind of stuff. Spam, bulk, those kind of things. And even people trying to log in that aren't really supposed to be there. Both inbound and outbound, as you can see, we're a little cleaner going outbound, which should be normal for everybody. But inbound is where all the bad guys really try to get us, right? So that's typically there. And then down at the bottom, Sophos has this nice little global security news kind of thing. They update this pretty frequently. So if you're interested in looking at some of those kind of items, they're there. You can also click and go see the ones before and after, that kind of thing. So the dashboard, that's kind of it. I am going to jump into something that's called Account Health Check. This is relatively, it's not relatively new. It's been around for a little while, but I think it's a feature that a lot of people don't actually go take a peek at. If you actually click on this from the dashboard, it's going to give you kind of a product review instantaneously, kind of overall about how things are doing. So if we've got all of our systems that are in good shape, we're going to see a lot more green. If we've got some that have problems, those are probably going to be in the yellow range there. If we're missing some that do not have protection involved, we're going to know that. And it tells me right here that I'm missing some of that kind of stuff. And the same thing on the server side. So that's why these are yellow over here at the end. I have a couple of dev systems that I leave out there just so I can show numbers. Tamper protection turned on. This is really important. If that tamper protection is turned off, for users, that means that potentially they have the ability to shut down the services that run the Sophos Central endpoint and make it not work on a workstation. So we want to make sure that that's locked down. That's kind of what that is. And then same thing here, server tamper protection. We actually don't have it turned on here, so that's not a good thing from that perspective. And then they kind of go through and look at your policies and see how things are set in their policies. We have a whole lot of policies, so that kind of makes that not work so good. And then how we do on exclusions, things we look out. So it gives you a nice thumbs view of your overall health and things that you might want to say, wow, I didn't realize that. You can go find all this information in all the other screens, if you will, but here it kind of gives you a good place to kind of catch them all up front. I'm going to go to endpoint protection here. So this is workstations. And on workstations, I get a dashboard that's there, and it's similar to some of the stuff I saw up front and the alerts that are generated, the last times they came across and things like that. And I'm going to click on the computer section. So in the computer section, these are all of our computer workstations that are protected by Sophos endpoint. And there's a couple of things to note. Green is good, like you would expect. Yellow or red means there's some issues to deal with. But there's some other things that I want to talk about that are like tips or tricks. So as an example, where we have Intercept X Advanced set on some people, we also have licensing for XDR. If you had XDR or MDR and you didn't have a PC enrolled in it, it's going to look a lot like this. So all you really have to do is click on this little upgrade button, and it will actually automatically take care of that for you. So kind of keep that in mind. Just because you think you purchased the licenses, it's a good idea to kind of walk through here and make sure that you've got those things turned on where they're supposed to be turned on in your environment. The other thing that you can do here too is there's this filter section, and I can show filters with a bad status, right? So we don't have any that are in bad status. That would kind of be bad, right? But I can also show some that have medium, right? So I've got a couple that are medium. These systems don't really exist in our environment anymore because we've moved them out. And that's what they're doing, is they're talking about that they're not reporting. As you can see here, Windows 7, no one's supposed to have that in their environment anymore, right? So we've left this one out here. And then I've got a Windows 10 Pro that's turned off, so it's complaining also about that. But you can easily see those without having to scan through your entire stack of systems just by using some of the filters that are here as well, okay? So that's kind of cool. The other thing too is there's this unmanaged computers. If we catch the fact that you've got a bunch of computers out there or some computers out there that do not have the Sophos endpoint on them, you can click on this and it will pop them right to the top, and then you can go, track down that system and get your Sophos endpoint product set up on that particular system so that it can be protected the way that you want. All right, so that's endpoint protection. I'm going to take another minute and I'm going to talk about computer policies, because there's a couple of things that I'd like to show you here. We have a whole bunch of policies that we put in place, but I want to show you a base policy. So I'm going to take the base policy as they come out of the box. I'm going to go to settings. And if you have access into your portal and you have rights to do this, these are the things that you want to kind of pay attention to. So if you'll notice here, Sophos is like does your AI on the background if you want, and they say, okay, these are the policies that we'd really expect you to have turned on, and they're turned on that way. Okay, so it kind of gives you that. If you adjust these and turn these off, then you won't actually have this here, and some of these others will be flipped the way that you might have wanted them to be, which is okay too, depending on what you're looking for. I really want to bring this up for this section up for this. We actually have it set by default to do scans across your systems, and it's typically Wednesday night when it comes in. If you want to adjust this or pick other days or nights or times, you can adjust that scheduled scanning. So basically what happens there is all the real-time stuff is still working, but on the back-end side, you might want to scan those systems fully instead of just the real-time stuff occasionally. And some people's cyber insurance policies ask you to do, if you're doing those scheduled scans, and you might mark no on your cybersecurity insurance policy because you didn't realize that you actually were doing that, or that you have the ability to do that. So that's a little piece there to kind of keep in mind. Okay. All right. And we're going to come back out of here, and I'm going to go to email security, and I'm going to show you that different dashboard that I talked about, right? So on that first dashboard screen, we just kind of saw these two sections that are here in the middle. But on the email security dashboard, we see a lot more information. So last 30 days, these are inbound and outbound statistics. As you can see, it's about half. About 50% of the stuff that comes into your environment is not good stuff, right? So if you didn't have products like this in place, then look at all the other potential cyber problems that you might end up having, okay? Again, the same numbers up above as well, and then so it's kind of helpful from that perspective. There also is a place for you to go and click on mailboxes here, and you can see all the mailboxes that are protected. You can also globally look at quarantine messages. So this is all the messages that are quarantined globally, not individually, globally. Okay. And then you can do things here where you release them, things like that. What you do not have access to is people's personal quarantine messages. That's not provided. Only the individual can see their own personal allow and block list and the personal quarantine stuff. However, everything that comes in generally for quarantine shows up here originally. So you can get to those items. So just kind of keep that in mind. And then there's a number of policies to set up under email protection as well. And we've also got adjustments based on what we do. But there are some points that I want to bring out here. Typically, things that I like to see turned on are these smart banners. These smart banners will allow, they kind of give a visual representation to your end user on whether or not a message that came in could be potentially trusted, should not be trusted, should be blocked, should not be allowed, those kinds of things. You have some granular control over that. You can turn this on for folks this way. So if I have an email that comes in from the outside of the environment, it's going to come up and it's going to show up in this yellow with this yellow banner because it's coming externally. And it's going to give me this little message that says, hey, this is coming from an outside person. So you might want to, your spidey sense should go off a little bit and kind of make you aware of that that's not internal, right? So that's a first key. If it's coming from somewhere outside the environment and Sophos deems that as being untrusted, then it gives you a little bit stronger message if you want to from that perspective. But we also can change this to block the sender altogether and report it and maybe not even give it to our end user. So you have the ability to granularly control those kinds of settings as well. But again, the objective here is to provide the end user who's receiving the email a little bit more information about the source of that email and whether or not they should, be on heightened alert, so to speak, right? Okay, so that's something that if you're not using that, I would definitely recommend that you do that kind of thing. Another piece is impersonation protection. This is like your VIP stuff. So you can add a banner. It's going to say something like this. And then there's a way to go on and add all the types of users you want. So the C-level folks, the folks that are in accounting or finance that potentially might get asked to, send checks or do ACHs or wire transfers, that kind of stuff. So you want to go add those people in here. And then this is the kind of message that people might get if this particular feature gets detonated. And then the last piece I'll show you is what I'll call URL protection. And this one's really important. Bad guys are smart enough to send, they know that you're scanning emails as they come in. They know that we have firewalls that are doing those kinds of things. So they try to put some URLs, the links that people can click on inside the email, because typically you scan it, whoop-de-doo, it's nothing bad there until you go to the link, right? So what Sophos does when you turn this on is they check the reputation of those URLs, right? They're doing this all across the globe for you in the background, so there's nothing you have to do. If they're super high risk and they've seen that, then you can choose what you want to do with that. I can either block or warn. I would never put it in warn for high risk. I'm always blocking it. So if an end user has a URL like this in their email and they click on it, they're going to get a message that pops up from Sophos saying, hey, this is deemed high risk and we're not going to let you go there. Okay. If it's a medium risk, and you can choose whether you want to block it or warn. If you block it, you're going to get that same kind of block message. If you warn, they're going to get a warning message to say, hey, this is someplace that you probably want to check out. It's not super risky, but it's not also trusted as well. And then if there's unverified, we can't tell one way or another, you get to choose what you want to do. So it's a little tricky by that. If you click through these items, the warning, it will log that. So as an administrator, you can go back later and see who's clicked through those things, on who's not clicked through those things. And then that puts that user sometimes in a profile of what we call a high risk user, because maybe they just click on everything. We have the clicky people in our environments. So maybe you're one of those, maybe not, but it will log all that kind of stuff. And then the other thing that it does is if you do click through, then Sophos is actually going to detonate that link. They're going to try that link in like a sandbox environment. And if something malicious happens, then they're going to warn you there too and block that. If nothing happens, then it's going to go ahead and let you go through. But all of that gets logged. So just kind of keep in mind that this is really a super powerful piece of the solution that you should implement and set it accordingly. All right. So we'll come out of email security. And the last thing that I want to talk about two things. One of them is phishing. Everyone's getting phished. You see that in the email component that we had. And there's all kinds of scams that bad guys try to do. Sophos has a component that's called Phish Threat, and it's very inexpensive. It's just an add-on into the product space, and it allows you to do a couple of things. One, I like it for training for end users. So if you want to do phish training or malware training or impersonation training, they already have a whole bunch of modules that are in there that you can customize for your end user base. And you can create a campaign around, hey, we're going to do phish training, or we're going to do malware training, or we're going to do ransomware training. Those kinds of things are included in the tool. Once you've gone through and done the training, and it will actually allow you to enroll people. It will allow you to pay attention to what's going on, how often they're doing their tasks they've been assigned. The ones that aren't, it can automatically send emails back out to those folks saying, hey, you had 7 days to do this, you haven't done it yet, please get this going. And it can report that stuff back and keep track of it. So for HR purposes or cyber insurance purposes, when you actually have to do some sort of security training, phish training, ransomware training, those kind of things, it can solve all those problems for you right in the platform. So it's really good from that perspective. Once you've done the training, then you can actually go out and create a campaign where we try to catch people who may have taken the training, but are maybe lax on or not lax on paying attention to what's going on in their email. So we can actually phish them ourselves, right? So we can send a message out, like I mentioned earlier, the gift card kind of thing, right? So we can fake send them one of those. If they actually click on it and get caught, then it pops up a message and it tells them that they've been caught, and maybe sends them to training that's appropriate or retraining that's appropriate, however you want to look at that. If they don't get caught and they've caught that as spam and they've marked that off, then kudos to them. That's awesome. That's what we really want to get to, where the majority of the people are paying attention enough and have had enough education to know what to look for. So that's the phish threat component that's available within the same platform. And then the last thing that I'll talk about before I turn it over to Dave is really about cyber insurance for your organization. 5, 6, 7 years ago, when companies would have their financial insurance, business insurance renewed, their policies renewed, typically the finance officers or the folks who are responsible for accounting or the business owners will go through and work with their insurance provider. And the insurance providers, that long ago, might have only asked 1 or 2 questions. Hey, are you doing this? Hey, are you backing up your systems? And people would say, yeah, we are. Okay, great. Everything's cool. Nowadays, that has gone to become a real exercise in time management for companies. And the list of questions have gone from just a couple to 7 or 8 pages, a couple of writer documents. Some of the ones that I saw this year have been in the neighborhood of 30 pages worth of stuff that they want you to go through and deal with. So I've had customers that have come to us asking for help to look at those and help them understand, what of those things that they can answer that, truthfully that they're doing in their environment, which ones they're not doing in their environment, the ones they might not be doing in their environment, what kind of things would we recommend that they do so that they can mark them, yes, or we're doing that. And one of the things that I'll bring up or point out is that the Sophos platform covers almost all of the items that I've been seeing on any of these cyber insurance risk assessments, if you will, that have been coming out. So kind of keep that in mind as you go through and look at those things in your businesses. If you have questions, reach out to your QCM folks. We're happy to, to help you kind of go through that, walk through that kind of thing, and point out what you're doing, what you're not doing. If you've got it all under control, then great. I've had a couple of customers in the past 2 years that were denied insurance because they marked no on some of the items. And the insurer decided they were not going to take the risk because they felt it was too much. And they've told them no. And then that company had to go scramble to find somebody else who would insure them. At the same time, we've had customers that have marked no on a few things that weren't maybe what the cyber insurance vendor considered to be, the highest risk. Maybe they were low risk kind of items like like the fish training as an example, is one that might be low risk. But the cost of the renewal for that particular cyber insurance went up like 10 times. So it was a huge increase in their payment back if they wanted the cyber insurance. So we worked with them, that customer, and the insurer, and we helped them get a number of things implemented before their deadline, and it reduced their payment back for that insurance back down to something that was reasonable, that was affordable for that particular customer. They didn't have to go looking for another vendor. So keep those kind of things in mind. Your insurers are potentially going to raise your price or not insure you at all if you've marked some of those things no. The biggest ones nowadays are multi-factor authentication. I'll tell you that right now. If you're doing M365 or any other remote access into your environment and you're not doing MFA, make sure you're getting that done, because that's the biggest, probably the biggest one that they've got out there from that. With that being said, I'm happy to take a couple of questions if there are any, and if not, then I can hand over to Dave and let Dave talk about the next piece that's up, which is MDR.
I'll add to that just for a sec, Stephen, while you're on the insurance topic, because it is part of my topic as well. But one of the things that we're seeing, particularly in healthcare, or at least that's where it started, that we started seeing it, was, or is, that insurance providers are denying customers, cutting them off, like Stephen was talking about, if they don't have some sort of MDR solution, which is the topic I'm going to talk about. So it kind of bleeds into this. MDR is becoming required. If you don't, there's kind of a carrot and a stick type of thing going on. Some insurance companies are giving you the the Allstate safe driver discount, right? If you have MDR in place, we'll give you lower rates. Some carriers have been telling customers they won't insure them at all if they don't have MDR in place. One of the neat things that we've done as a company is gone out and partnered with a few different insurance companies or providers, and there will be more added, but we have been able to demonstrate to them that customers who have MDR have a lower risk, considerably lower risk of breach or data loss or a ransomware event, which ultimately saves the insurers money, which is why they're jacking up the rates on people, right? Because for the past many years, they are just getting murdered on claims. So by demonstrating to them the effectiveness of our solution, they have put special rates in place for Sophos customers. So we have 2 right now. There's a third that's about to be coming online, who's actually going to do a flat rate for all customers, which is pretty amazing for an insurance carrier, because they know that we've shown them, and they're working with our data teams to really dig into the data. So if anyone's interested, after the call, we can certainly post the links to to both of those insurers if you're interested in looking at those. I will take that as my, sorry, I jumped in on your Q&A session, Stephen, and I'll take that as.
No, that's really good. I appreciate you jumping in on that. It's an important topic for businesses to pay attention to from the insurance perspective, and being ready to deal with those items. So with that, if you do have any questions that come up, or you want to, or you think about them later, feel free to reach out to your QCM reps, and we'll help you get those things solved. And otherwise, thank you very much for your time. And Dave, all yours.
Awesome. Well, thank you. Thanks to everyone for jumping on today. For those of you who I haven't met in the past, Dave Four, I'm one of the local Sophos reps on the phone today. Also, we have Dat Lay, who lives in Scottsdale. I'm down in Gilbert, and John Fallon, who's also in Gilbert. He's the sales engineer for both of us. And we work with organizations like yourselves to help you guys, stay secure. We work with partners like QCM, who's one of our biggest partners, if not our biggest partner in Arizona these days. And they have been a longtime partner of ours and friend of ours, and really understand the value and have really great technical teams, Stephen and his team, who, as you just saw in his demonstration of, some of the things in the product that you need to look out for, knows the product extremely well, knows our technologies well, knows the concept well, and he knows the problem you're facing really well, which is evident in the way he's talking about some of the tactics and techniques that the bad guys come at you. So I'm gonna spend my time talking today a little bit more in depth about a particular evolution, I'll say, of cybersecurity, and it is an important evolution. And you hear people a lot in cybersecurity industry talking about next gen, and it's always funny to me because it's not next. Most of the next gen things people are talking about aren't next gen anymore. They're current gen. They're designed to address a now problem, not a future problem. This is a today's state thing, and we have to evolve as a cybersecurity industry, as a partner community, and as customers. You have to evolve your thinking about threats and about the implication of threats and the implication of, even worse, an attack, right? A breach, a ransomware event, whatever it is. The world has changed. The bad guys are continually evolving their techniques and tactics, and we have to evolve our thinking to stay ahead of that. And that's thinking on your part to make sure that you're addressing things. Stephen mentioned MFA. MFA has been around for a long time. Many of you probably used to carry RSA tokens. I did when I started at Sophos. And thank God we're into something easier now with the Duos and the Oktas and the Microsofts and some of the other authenticator apps. You could just do it on your phone. Makes it really, really easy. So that's one way of evolving and making sure you guys are informing your ownership groups and your stakeholders in your organizations that, look, we can't just keep doing things the way we used to do things. And yeah, it's kind of annoying that you have to type in a 6-digit code every time you go to a web-based app. But guess what? That's the only way that I, the IT person or security person responsible for the organization, can keep us out of the news. And that's one of the promises that I always bring up to customers when I'm talking to them about. They're like, what is it you guys do? And my cheeky answer, if I'm on an airplane, and I'm the guy who talks on an airplane, by the way, you can ask John. He's probably rolling his eyes right now. But I talk to the I talk to the people that I meet on the plane. I'm interested. I want to know what they do. I'm always interested in what they do. And if they ask me what I do, I like to tell them that my job is to keep people A, from being owned, and B, out of the news. And usually, if it's an IT person, they're like, that's what my boss wants. That's what my owner wants. That's what our board wants. They want to keep us out. It's that keep me out of the news thing that seems to get a lot of people's attention. And MDR is exactly designed to do that. It is, I will refer to it quite often throughout this conversation as fire prevention. So let's get into it a little bit, and I'll take you through the why of MDR to start. It's because this is hard. I'm telling you guys, and you know this, right? But these, hopefully, I can give you some words, some bullets to take back when people at the executive level push back and say, "Oh, more money," and you're like, "Yeah, but we need more money to fight the problem, and we need more money because this is hard. It's really hard. It's hard for us, and we've been doing cybersecurity since 1985. I mean, we were around for some of the original viruses, and those were kind of taggy kind of things, the I love you virus and the Kilroy was here thing, and some of those other things that were just in the beginning started out quasi benign, and now it's all about money, as you know. And so we have to help you make it easier to fight the bad guys. And to do that, we have to move on to new technologies. So you can't effectively fight it on your own in most cases, unless you're just a super large organization, an enterprise level company, a banner health who has a SOC team, a security operations center, and an entire security team that does nothing but cybersecurity all day long. But the companies that Dat and John and I work with are, sub 1,000 employees, and 0 of them that I've met have their own security team. Most of them don't even have a dedicated IT security person. They have an IT person or an IT team, but most of the time you don't have a dedicated security resource because, frankly, those are hard to find too, and hard to keep at your company because of the cost a lot of times. So, how do we help make this easier? What are the problems that you're facing, and how can we help? So first of all, I'll give you some of the scary numbers that I'm not going to ask anyone to raise their hand or chime in, but you probably know or know people that have been, if you haven't been a victim yourselves, you probably know somebody, but 57% of organizations report increased attacks. That is a massive number of companies, and 78% who actually said they were hit by ransomware last year. Now this is a 2022 survey, so it's probably 2021, but it's not getting better, right? It's getting worse. So lots of attacks, too many things for you to think about, to look about, to consider, or look at, to consider, to put in place. Organizations have way too many monitoring tools in place, and security tools in place, and they're just getting killed with alerts. It's like you're the security guard at a mall and all the car alarms are going off. and you go, well, I quit. I can't address this effectively. I can't get to all of them, so I don't even know where to start. And that's what's hurting a lot of organizations, is there's so much noise about fix this, do this, plug this hole, and people go out and buy a ton of point products, and now they just got a lot of screaming products that are making a lot of noise, and they don't know where to start. So they kind of don't in a lot of cases. And then, as I mentioned a second ago, if you were able to bring on a security person, if you could, even get a rec approved for, in Arizona, our SOC team tells us the average salary range for a proper IT security admin in Arizona is $90,000 to $110,000. I got that number from them 2 years ago. During COVID, that could have gone up. And those people probably, if you looked at their LinkedIn's, probably have been at 3 different organizations in 2 years, because they're so hard to find and they're incredibly hard to retain, because the next company that says we got to have one of those is like, I'll give you this much more money to come over here, and I'll give you this much. It's great job security for security people, obviously. It's one of the reasons I moved to this industry 12 years ago, because this is a a never going away problem and an ever increasing problem, and there's always going to be someone for us to help. So that's some of the scariness of the numbers. What Stephen kind of showed you and talked to you about is a lot of the products, and we talk about the ecosystem. We, all of those products that you see in software, and then we have, for many of you, have our firewalls, maybe some of our access points, some of you probably even have our switches these days. The software and hardware part of our business is it was very intentionally put together as part of an overall ecosystem goal that our CEO and product leaders had starting about 9 years ago, and I've been here 12. So I was here for the beginning of the current CEO, and he said, man, we got a lot of great point products, right? We got a lot of hole pluggy products, but they don't work together. They're not managed in the same place, and it's not an ecosystem. We can be the first security vendor to really create this ecosystem and make it simpler for customers to deal with this problem that is really, really complex. So we started down the path of this software and the hardware, and then eventually adding services in that would enable us to have visibility to everything, give you the customer. Oh, sorry.
What?
Mute somebody. Somebody mute,
Or nuance.
please.
You got it requested from.
Hey guys, Zona, whoever, if you guys will mute, thanks. So bringing everything together and giving you manageability all in one place is really, really important. Giving us visibility to all of our stuff, both from a Sophos Labs perspective that you see there at the bottom, but also for MDR that we're going to go into. It gives us a much better shot of stopping bad things if we can see all the things, or more of the things. So that ecosystem approach is really important. If you look around the industry, we're not the only one doing this. We were just the first one, really. A lot of our competitors are copycatting this kind of philosophy. Now, the difference between them and us, and we, not to go into detail here, in most cases, is the question that I always ask, okay, to what extent, or the how far do you go? Our product suite is more robust than just about anybody else in the industry. We do more things. We give you the ability to reduce more of your, 46 was the number of, alerting tools on that other slide, but more of the 46, getting it down to a smaller number. I went to lunch in Vegas with a potential customer, and I had met with the director of IT a few times, and he brought his CIO to lunch that day. And I was pretty excited about it. And I said, I said to the CIO, he was sitting across from me, and I said, why are we meeting today? And he said, Dave, I need to have fewer lunches with guys like you. And I started laughing, and I was like, man, that's the best thing. I've said it to customers for years, not in those words, but I love those words. And so I use them all the time now. But I answered him and said, I am uniquely positioned to help you do that because of this picture right here, and because of what we can do with the products, both on the software and hardware side, the network and end user side, as well as the managed service side. And that gets us into the managed service part of this. So what is managed detection or response? Well, many of you have heard a lot in the industry about EDR, endpoint detection or response, or XDR, which stands for extended detection and response. Many of you heard about SIMS, which is security information. Oh God, I just drew a blank. So anyway, event, thank you. Information and event management. Just my E went away. And you've heard a lot about SOCs. I've said it a couple times, Security Operations Center. And a lot of times these words or these acronyms get used as if they're synonymous. And they're not synonymous. Each person that's talking to you about one of these terms means only what they mean or what their company can deliver. So we were very specific in the way we defined MDR. And it is the definition here. I'm not going to read it to you because you probably all read it already. But it is a very specific capability that we have to manage the alerts and the security, the cybersecurity threats that come into your organization to help you prevent bad things from happening. That frankly, the products alone, no matter how good our products are here, alone, they're never going to stop the threat completely. Just like how when you leave the house in the morning, you lock your doors and windows and you put your garage door down. But that alone does not deter a determined attacker from breaking a window. And at that point, you have an alarm system that detects the broken glass, that is connected to the internet, so it calls the police, that takes photos or video with the cameras that you have, all of those things. That is what MDR does for us. So we're looking at things constantly. So what type of outcomes does MDR produce for customers? Well, it lowers risk. This is the part that the insurance providers love, right? It lowers your risk significantly, and it's a reduction in the number of things that you, in most cases, customers have to go investigate if they don't have an MDR service. If you try to do it yourselves, it takes a lot of time. Here you go. So how do we make you more efficient? We reduce the time, we reduce the risk, then we reduce the time it takes to do things because we're doing it for you, which makes you 2 times more efficient. This is all based on surveys of customers that we went up to thousands of customers and had, I don't know, 1,500 respondents or something that were giving us the data that we put these numbers together with. And then it ultimately lowers your cost. I think it's safe to say, we've been selling MDR now for almost 4 years. It'll be 4 years in November. Every single customer I've put a quote in front of has a little bit of a gasp. They were buying our endpoint protection maybe, or somebody's endpoint protection, and now they're thinking, oh, this is endpoint protection with monitoring. How much could that be? It's more. It's considerably more than endpoint protection, but it is about 5 times less than trying to do it yourself, and it's maybe, I forget the stat, 20 times less than having a breach or having a ransomware attack. And man, if you know anybody that's been through that, hopefully you haven't. But if you know anybody that has, go ask them how much it cost them. How much did it cost them in lost time? How much did it cost them in actual dollars restoring machines? How much did it cost them in notifying their customers? How much did it cost them in potential compliance fees? There's all kinds of stuff that go into this cost number, but it is so much less paying for the prevention than paying for the cure. And by the way, in our world, after you pay for the cure, you always end up buying the prevention anyway. It's just that you had to go through some ugly times to get there. So it's the thing that I always say. I said we're a fire prevention company, right, earlier, or this is a fire prevention service. I always tell people, hey, we have a fire department too. We put out fires and we'll meet at the scene of the fire, but it'll be a hell of a lot less if you just put the fire prevention in place and we don't have to deploy the fire department because they're not cheap. And that's the case with any incident response. That's what it's called in the industry, incident response service. So we can significantly help. How do we do it? Well, there's 2 primary types of MDR solutions in the industry, I'll say, or services. There's a group of vendors who does what we call bring your own technology. So they kind of say, hey, I don't care what endpoint protection you use, Sophos, whatever, Microsoft. I don't care what kind of firewalls you have, Palo Alto, Fortinet. I don't care what kind of email protection you use, Mimecast, Proofpoint. I don't care what Duo or Okta you use or Azure. Doesn't matter to me. We're going to put a sensor out there and we're going to gather all those things and put them in a SIM, security, information, and event management. Thank you, John. And we're going to have rules that look that correlate events. They look for correlation events. Hey, is something weird from this firewall potentially related to something weird that's going on with the email? Potentially weird that's something that the endpoint is reporting, and then hope that bubbles up something that then artificial intelligence or playbooks or maybe humans look at and provide some guidance to you on. So it's the good thing is they're looking for multiple sources. The bad thing is they're not their products. So they have very limited capability of what they can do for you, and do becomes a verb. Single vendor, that's people like us and these others that we have listed here, where we say, hey, we could do a lot because you put our tools in your environment and we can do a lot because there are tools and we're the best at managing them. And we can, get really deep, but we're only looking at our tools. So we can't see, in my case, endpoint and server. I can't see firewall. I can't see email. I can't see, other things. Well, I can now. So Sophos went out and acquired two very strategic companies for us. One of them was called SOC and this was a company that was making integration capabilities, producing these ways to integrate third-party products for SOCs. This company was selling to large security operations centers around the world and saying, hey, you need this thing to be able to grab the relevant security information from a Palo Alto firewall and from Proofpoint's email and from, CrowdStrike's endpoint or whatever. And you need to be able to pull these all into your SIM. So he was making those technologies. We snapped him up. He makes those for us now. I say he because it was like a 7-person company. These really smart dudes who were making really cool pieces that we needed. So now Sophos is the only vendor in the industry that says, hey, not only do I have my own tools that I can do lots of stuff for you, but I can also ingest from whatever third-party products you have. And I say whatever, we're like at 60 or something different products right now, and the list is growing rapidly. But the primary firewall vendors that you know about, the primary email vendors, almost all the endpoint guys, we have a lot of integrations now for third-party products, and we will have a lot more going forward. The other company that we acquired was an MSSP out of Utah, and they were called Braintrace, and they had a technology that we wanted for network detection and response, which is different from managed detection and response. It's a function of it today, now that we have it. But there are products like Darktrace and some others, Rapid7 kind of, that sell in the network detection space. But it's looking for, where a firewall or us talking to your, say, ingesting data from your Fortinet firewall is looking at north-south traffic coming in and out. NDR now can look sideways. So we have the ability now to say, okay, what if somebody got in and got a toehold through a compromised machine and they're starting to go sideways and they're stealing credentials and they're trying to escalate privileges and or a rogue device is on your network. Or I heard a story from a customer recently in town that told that they had a security assessment done and the analyst said, hey, you guys need NDR because you don't have that in place. And they said, okay, tell us about that. And he goes, well, there was this casino in Vegas whose fish tank got ransomware. And I went, excuse me? Tell me more about that. Well, what really happened, they kind of minced words a little. The fish tank had an IoT sensor on it for thermostat or something. And bad guy hacked into the IoT device. They're just well known to be not well protected, right? So they hacked into this device and then were able to somehow pivot to the corporate network and get into another device. So, if you've got an IoT device and we can't see that internal traffic because it's not going outside the network, it's staying inside, NDR lets us see that. So a really important ad for those of you who may have MDR already, something to consider for your environment. It's a really, really important piece, and it's something we didn't have, and now we've bought it, and it's integrated. It's not a bolt-on. It's integrated, and it's part of the solution, and it just gives our folks a lot more visibility. So this capability that we have now of kind of meeting you where you are. What do you have? You might be an endpoint customer of ours. Awesome. You got someone else's firewall. Awesome. We'll pull that in. We still want to talk to you about Sophos firewall. We still want to show you why we think we can compete with and or give you better protection and simpler management all in one pane of glass with Sophos firewall. But in the meantime, let us ingest the information, the alerts that are frankly being sent to you by your current Fortinet, Palo Alto, Cisco, whatever. But you may or may not be spending enough time looking at them. You know, if an alert pops up at 2 a.m. and you're sleeping and you should have seen it, and it's some bad traffic, it doesn't help you if you're not doing something about it. So that would be feeding to our SOC team, and they would be seeing it and doing something about it. So one of the things that I think gives us a huge advantage in this space is this. We have 530,000 customers. This is not endpoints. This is not firewalls. This is 530,000 organizations, corporate, nonprofit, government, that trust us to protect them. About 350,000 of those are on the endpoint side, and I think the other ones are on the firewall side, and some of them are, you know, a mixture of both. The reason that's important is because all of those devices feed telemetry. All of the bad things that they alert on, that they see, that they stop naturally, that they detect on, goes to Sophos Labs, who takes that information. They break down those potential threats or those actual threats, and they feed stuff back into the products to make them safer. So it's this continuous feedback loop. And the more customers you have, the more telemetry you have, and the more telemetry you have, the smarter you are. So Tim Kinnerup once said to his sales team when I was doing a presentation talking about this, he was like, you know, Sophos has been doing this a long time and they're not getting worse at it. And I like that way of saying it. It's true. The bigger we grow, the more customers we gain, the more information we have to keep everyone safer. We're a Gartner leader in endpoint protection more than any other vendor in that leadership space. And we're the highest rated and most reviewed in Gartner peer reviews. So this is like the Yelp for technology. Like, I'm not the restaurant that got 5 stars, but only had 2 people that showed up, and they were probably the family members of the guy who started it, right? We're, I don't know, 378 reviews. I've got a slide at the end that has it. And we're like a 4.8, you know, on both our endpoint, our firewall, and our MDR service. So we're doing really well when your peers, our customers, talk about our solutions. I think I covered most of this stuff already, so no need to see that. I mentioned the 530,000 customers feeding the information, and it's the Sophos XOps team that is the heart of our company. This is, you know, I call them the nerds affectionately. These guys are the ones who are the researchers and the data scientists and the analysts who are on the phone, you know, or on the systems monitoring for potential threats for I said fire prevention, right? So we're looking for lightning strikes, and we're looking for cigarette butts being flicked out of car windows, which apparently is still a thing. And we're looking for embers from campfires that weren't effectively put out by people that could start forest fires. And we're squashing those before they become things. All of this information that we see feeds into our capability to stop things. And we see a lot of stuff. About 17,000 customers that we have globally on our MDR solution already. That's a subset of those 530,000. So we see a ton of events every day that, you know, boil down to only a few active threats. So it's really important for us to be able to break that down and do it in a very quick time frame. Now, if you tried to do this internally, you'd probably have, you know, if you had a full team, take you about 16 hours to stop the bad stuff. We do it from detection to remediation in about 38 minutes. And that's a critical point for us, and something that frankly Gartner tells us we need to focus on more often, because there's no other provider in the industry that, most of them don't even provide them these numbers, these stats, and we do. So the last thing I'm gonna spend time on is this concept of response, and that is that we actually are. You might have heard eyes on glass or hands on keyboard. Many of our competitors will simply respond by saying, "Hey guys, we see a lightning strike in sector 4," and you're like, "Okay," and they're like, "Yeah, go deal with it." And they might give you guidance on how to deal with it. Hey, you need to send a dude out there with a little shovel and tamp out the little fire that's there before it turns into a big fire. At Sophos Land, our guys do that for you. Our SOC team has the ability, because we have our products on there, to go deep. We might see something from a third-party firewall, but we are going to cluster that information with what we see going on the endpoint and take action at the endpoint, and in some cases take action at the firewall, and in the future be able to do that much more effectively and much more comprehensively. But this is the kind of the secret to our success. One of the secrets to our success is the fact that most of our competitors will just notify you that there's a problem going on. And we believe that a security service should stop threats, not just notify you about threats that are happening or coming in. So the ability for us to get hands on keyboard and actually get into your network and stop bad things on your behalf while you sleep, and it's humans doing the investigation, humans making the decisions, and humans doing the work. It is not AI based, because AI based is very limited. It's fast and it works to a point, but ours, we call it like AI assisted human interaction. We use the technology and the machine learning and the deep learning and AI. You can kind of conflate those terms to all mean the same thing, but they don't. But people use them that way, and we use that to get us to a point, and then we get involved and make human decisions. So the last slide I'll show you is this one, which is if you were to think about doing this yourselves, which most organizations below 1,000 don't try, but this is based on 250 users. Look how many, all the cost is in the middle, everybody. I mean, most of it, it's the people. How could you stand up a 24/7 SOC? Well, you'd need 5 analysts. You need somebody to manage them, and you need a shift leader. It costs a ton of money to do it yourself. It does not cost that much money for us to do. It is less than an FTE. It's less than what you would pay one security person who would work 8 to 5, no weekends, no holidays. You're getting an entire team 24/7. So that's my last slide. I need to wrap it up. I hope that was beneficial. Does anybody have any questions? I can stop sharing so I can see if anybody jumps on. Anybody have any questions about any of that? Nope. Cool. Well, thanks for your time. I appreciate it. I appreciate everybody jumping on.
Dave and Stephen, thank you. This is Tim again. And thank you, all of our partners, customers, clients, friends that have attended. We hope we did what we intended to do was make you a little bit smarter today, maybe guide some more, answer some thoughts, but maybe guide you to more questions. Reach out to anybody at QCM that you deal with regularly, and Dave and his entire team are at our disposal. We set up separate times for them, and so we won't hold you any longer, but please feel free to reach out if you'd like the recorded session to Zona. And without further ado, thank you all for attending, and Dave and Stephen for your time.
Thanks, everyone. Take care.
All right. Thank you, guys.
Thanks. Bye now.